Each society has peculiarities that make that culture unique, and Georgia is no different. Of course, there are obvious elements of Georgian culture, such as its food, music, and language, but what makes Georgian culture truly Georgian is a complex relationship between tangible elements and vague values. Unlike many Western cultures, particularly American and Canadian societies, which are often based on broad and overarching ideas such as freedom, liberty, and individuality, many cultures have a tangible foundation based on factors such as religion, language, and history. Georgian society is defined not by its adoration for separation of powers, constitutionalism, or secularism, but rather by tangible elements such as literature, language, and the Georgian Orthodox Church, which have, over the course of Georgia's history, culminated to create modern Georgian culture. Monolithic cultures are cultures in which all aspects of that society can be summed up in a singular idea or identity. In these societies, communal identity often supersedes individual identity. Georgian culture has a term for itself, Kartveloba, which roughly translates as Georgianness. This term comes from the word Kartveli, which is what the Georgian people call themselves, and the suffix oba, which is similar to the English suffix ness, such as in the words greatness and holiness. The presence of such an all-encompassing term provides evidence that Georgian society is monolithic in nature, since Georgians feel that they can properly define all of Georgian society and all Georgian people in one term. When asked to define Kartveloba, Georgians often give the same three answers: love of nation, freedom, and democracy. Love of nation is defined as the love for Georgia's traditions. This includes respect for the Georgian Orthodox Church and Christianity in general. When Georgians speak of respecting their traditions, they often define these traditions as the teaching of Georgian literature in school, practicing Georgian dance and music, and understanding Georgian history. This definition of love of nation provides further evidence to the monolithic culture of Georgian society, that all Georgians should practice the same traditions and hold the same opinions of certain institutions, especially the Georgian Orthodox Church. Freedom, however, is a far more complex answer for most Georgians. When asked what freedom means, most Georgians respond by saying that each person possesses the right to freedom of speech. For them, this usually means the ability to speak without fear of violence or retribution, freedom of religion, and the freedom of thought and individuality. Georgians pride themselves on the work of their national author, Shota Rustaveli, who, in the 12th century, had written an epic poem entitled Vepris Kausani, The Knight in the Panther's Skin, which advocated for gender equality and the importance of individualism. Most interestingly is that Georgians of all ages are taught to quote the most open verses of Rustaveli's work. For example, one of the most popular quotes from Rustaveli is Lekvi lomisas tsoria zuikos tunda chladia. A lion's roar is the same, whether it be male or female. On a subconscious level, Georgian grammar enforces the importance of individualism. For example, the word tavi means head, but also means self. The possessive form of self, tvis, is also the word for. For example, to say, for the city, you would say, kalakis tvis, which could be taken literally as, for the city's selves. A more poignant example is the Georgian word tavisupleba, freedom or liberty, which is formed from the words tavi, self, and upleba, civil right. The word upleba comes from the word upali, meaning lord. The implication here is that to the Georgian mind, the word freedom, liberty, is inextricably connected to individuality. In fact, Georgians have such a reverence for individualism that it has been enshrined into the Constitution of Georgia. Article 12 of the Constitution of Georgia states that everyone shall have the freedom to develop their own personality. The implications of this are profound, particularly in a society where monolithic mentality still predominates Georgian culture. Article 12 of the Constitution of Georgia guarantees all individuals the right to the freedom of self-expression, despite what may be considered culturally unacceptable. Article 12 of the Constitution of Georgia was even used as a mechanism for the decriminalization of marijuana in Georgia. The Constitutional Court wrote that every person has the right to choose their means of relaxation. The third most common answer to what Kartveloba means is democracy. In the context of Georgian society, democracy is the application of the two aforementioned components of Georgian society. Democracy allows for the monolithic aspect of Georgian society to be connected with the individualistic component. In practical terms, this means that democracy gives Georgians an outlet for practicing their individuality, whether it be through protests or through the ballot. The Georgian model of democracy allows society to remain monolithic in nature but individualistic in practice. Anecdotally, this can be represented when young Georgians who vehemently denounce the Georgian Orthodox Church as a socially outdated institution that should remain outside of the political spectrum, especially in regards to matters such as LGBT rights and gender equality, yet they still cross themselves whenever they pass by a church building or see a religious symbol. A more profound example of this occurred when Georgian football defender Guram Kashia wore a rainbow flag armband in support of the LGBT community in October of 2017. Despite Georgia being a country where around 85% of the population disagrees with same-sex marriage, other prominent Georgian footballers came in defense of Kashia's decision to wear the LGBT armband. For example, Georgian goalkeeper Georgi Loria told the Georgian news site Tabula that this was freedom of expression from Kashia, and I agree with him that each person is free and that aggression towards any person has to be condemned. It doesn't matter if they represent the LGBT community or not. I have very neutral attitudes towards the LGBT community. However, we should have respect for any citizen because everyone decides how to live their own lives. Georgian culture is much more than eating khachapuri, wearing a chokha, and being able to quote Rustaveli or Chavchavadze. Kartveloba is about as paradoxical as Georgia itself. It attempts to confine Georgians within a specific set of elements while simultaneously celebrating individuality and freedom. For more information about Georgia, visit our website www.visiting-georgia.com. Thanks for watching.